Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? Welcome to the show. I will be attending the RapsCon and Raps VIP in Long Beach on August 2nd to the 4th. I'll also be doing podcast interviews, so if you're interested in getting in an interview with me, please contact me via email at allwrappeduppodcast.com. Head over there for more information to set up time and date. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by the 3rd Annual Raps VIP on August 3rd at 8 p.m. in Long Beach, California, right after RapsCon. This event is hosted by the IBOW, Dub IR, and Rapper Mapper, with sponsors like Orfold, 3M, Avery Dennison, along with tons of additional sponsors, networks, tools, and shops. Raps VIP is a totally free event by the rap industry for the rap industry. Everyone is welcome and all aspects of the industry are respected and supported. They'll also be having a classic car show with wrapped cars from the 50s and 60s. And what's an event without a little bit of competition? So they'll also be doing a die-cast car wrapping competition. There'll also be a live broadcast with yours truly from the Raps VIP event and some sit-down talks with some industry leaders. For more information, check out rapsvipevent.com. They'll also be posting some information and some updated stuff on their social media account. So head over to rapsvipevent.com to get any more additional information about the event. Now here's a brand new episode of All Wrapped Up.
I've got 7 computer screens up in front of me. And I had, I don't know how many tabs open in Google Maps trying to match this shop to this location, and then where is that in relation to the actual job site? And it just popped in my head, there's got to be a better way to do this, because it was taking forever.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to All Wrapped Up Podcast. We'll be interviewing industry-leading rap companies to share tips, tricks, stories, and more. All right, cool. So we'll go live now with Tim Evans from the Rapper Mapper. Tim, how are you?
Unbelievable. How about yourself, Jeff?
I'm doing well. I can't complain. It's great weather here, finally. I don't know how it is there in Ohio, but it's finally spring, I hope.
Spring has been kicking us around a bit here in Ohio. It's just this week alone, it's been 20, then snowing, then raining, then 70, then back to 20.
Yeah, I definitely know the struggles of the weather here. Tim, talk to me a little bit of what you have going on this week for the Rapper Mapper or for your pro signs and graphic shop.
Oh, have all sorts of things going on. I actually have most of my crews are out of the shop this week. I'm traveling to South Carolina to do an install down there, a full removal and a rewrap on a big unit. They're on their way back right now. Got all the printers running. We have a couple of paint replacements in the back for Carmeleon Skins, Mustang, and believe it or not, a lowered and cushioned minivan.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's one of those just cool projects where people are, they want to be different, and right. That's the beauty about the paint replacement is it doesn't matter how common that car is, we can turn it into something pretty cool.
Right.
So that's fun. Had a couple shoots this week at the studio, and Rapper Mapper has been. We've been signing people up this week. We've had a number of people applying to get on the map, so we have to go through the vetting process and everything there to get them on. So, and we're setting up for FESPA Berlin that's coming up here in a few weeks. So we're trying to get all of our plans together for that. RapsCon, then Long Beach is coming up. So working with Dan Nava, that Dan. So working on getting those details together. All sorts of things.
Busy.
Oh yeah.
Keeps you on your toes a little bit. How much time do you actually get to yourself running all these different businesses and in juggling all these different corporations that you have going on for the industry?
That's a relative question. Time to myself, if you count sleep.
Yeah, that's about it.
Right. That's about it. I get if I get about 6 hours of sleep a night, then I'm normally pretty good. I can rock along just fine. I'm really not one for idle hands and idle time. I tend to stay fairly busy. So if we're not working on stuff for the business, then of course I'm with my family, with my wife, my daughters. I'm doing that thing too.
That's awesome. So you have your hands in so many different avenues with the Rapper Mapper, the pro signs and graphics, as well as your photography end. I want to focus more in the beginning of the podcast, more about the pro signs and graphics industry in your brand and how you created that and how you kind of got into the industry, going back childhood, your second generation now in the sign industry. Talk to me a little bit growing up around this type of industry back then.
Well, I mean, my earliest memories were of spending time with my dad and in the shop. I remember being 4 or 5 and going down into the basement of the little house we lived in and seeing my dad up against his easel and hand painting real estate signs and things like that. He did it the old fashioned way. He did an apprenticeship with a company called Cotter Signs out of Dayton, Ohio, which I believe doesn't exist anymore, but they were a staple in the sign industry for a long time down there. So, growing up in that industry, with everything being hand painted, handcrafted, and we did everything from sandblasted signage to screen printed signs and banners and doors and wall dogging, wall murals, um, uh, hand fabricated neon letters and cabinets and dimensional signs, architectural, pretty much anything you could imagine being sold, designed, and built as a commercial sign shop, we did. And I learned a lot in the early years from my dad working that kind of stuff.
Did you get involved in the hand painting as well?
Yeah, hand painted. Yeah, for years. Sheesh. I mean, when I was young, when I was a kid, my dad was pretty old school.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't believe in handing you anything; you had to earn it. So my first important job working in the sign shop was a scrub brush in the bathroom. So scrubbing the toilets and the floors, and but then you work your way up through your basic things. Spray latting sign faces, which is big and sloppy and fun for a kid to do, and you get into pouncing patterns and things like that. And he would start teaching me how to work with one shot and Ronin paint, and how to properly cut it and thin it and get it ready to hand letter, and how to take care of your lettering brushes and what kind of quills you can use. And I still have my kit. It's at my shop. I keep it under my table. But it's probably been a decade at least since I have actually pulled it out and done anything with it.
Oh, wow.
It's all digital now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're kind of spoiled nowadays.
Exactly. We can do things in full color in a blink of an eye compared to what it was when I was younger.
Right, right. If you had to pick up the brush again, you think you could scroll some letters and do a little pinstriping?
I probably could, but my wrist might be complaining the next day.
Yeah.
It takes practice. Definitely takes practice and conditioning. Getting that flow just right, making sure you have the proper quills for what you're working on.
Right.
But I can imagine that it wouldn't take too long to where I'd be back in the flow.
Right.
But it's maybe when I'm older, I have nothing better to do than just kind of mess around with pinstriping, doing some really cool stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with some of the hand lettering shops out west. They just do this beautiful hand lettered signage and things like that, pinstriping and gold leafing and just gorgeous work. Maybe one of these days I'll get back into that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I could sit there and watch a hand painter paint for hours. It's just a true dying art. There's not many out still out there kind of
Yep.
doing that trade. And, um, I pay homage to the people who started
Yep.
hand painting and doing that, because that paved the way to, the cut graphics and then the digital stuff. And without that, I don't think we'd be where we are now, I think,
Exactly.
for sure.
Exactly. I mean, your sign painters are, it's an old craft. Someone's been making signs for, I imagine, as long as humans have been able to write.
Hmm.
So, but definitely in the last, 70, 75 to 100 years, one of the earliest magazines I remember reading was like Signcraft magazine,
Yeah.
and the letterheads just the skill and the art that came with those guys, and they still do. The letterheads still go, and they still do amazing things, and it's just such an art. It's one of the small areas of our industry where it's just almost a pure art still.
Yeah, you physically needed to know how to do that. I mean, anybody can really teach themselves how to use a computer and technology and things. That just, the whole thing with your arm and the brush and the quill and the press, you need to know the right pressure in order to get the right, flow of the letter. It's just unbelievable. Like I said, I could sit there and watch a guy paint for hours. I love seeing the wall murals like up on the side of brick buildings and things like that when they're painting huge murals. It's just phenomenal work, and they're there for weeks at a time, creating something that, for us, we print, hundreds of feet, per hour, and we could apply it within a day and be done too.
Right.
So,
And not only that, but they're working off a small gridded out drawing, and they're then transposing that creation, if they created it from scratch, if they're doing someone else's, on something 4 or 5 stories tall. I mean, it's awesome.
that's great. Now, fast forward a little bit to your teenage years. You're probably getting more involved. You know what I mean? Get into the cars and things of that nature. What changed then, as far as you and being in the industry?
Well, teenage years, we still were doing hand painting. I've been doing this for over 30 years now.
Wow.
So we got our first plotter, which was a Gerber 4B.
Mm-hmm.
Nice big $400 plug-in type styles, and but geez, I was probably 12, 13, maybe, when we got that for the first time. And my dad insisted that we use it for nothing but making pounce patterns.
Mm.
He was like, "I'm not giving up the hand painting, but we could use it to make patterns," and that we did a lot of that.
That definitely
you know,
saves a couple hours.
yeah. He wasn't a big fan of vinyl for the sake of vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a very prevalent attitude through the industry. With any innovation, with anything new, you have, a lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't like that new stuff. It's hurting this, that, or the other, or it's
Right.
debasing or, degrading the industry." So he wanted to paint. So for years we painted. But little by little, he came around to the convenience of vinyl, especially using good solid cast vinyl and being able to knock things out quickly. So it was a normal, natural evolution through his shop for that kind of stuff. But yeah, actually, until my dad just passed, just in October, just this past year. But
Oh, I'm sorry
I
about that.
I can guarantee, yeah, we're still struggling a little bit with that, but I can guarantee you, he was still painting a little bit up until a month or two before he passed. I mean, he liked to paint. He wasn't afraid to use the plotter. He used the plotter, but he definitely liked his brushes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, by the way. I appreciate that. Now going forward with starting your own business, building your brand, and kind of taking what you've learned from your dad and growing up and building into this new industry and the way things are kind of heading with the digital world. When did you start the Pro Signs and Graphics brand?
Pro Signing Graphics started back in '05. I was working for a shop up here in Columbus, and that just wasn't working out. It happens sometimes.
Yeah.
And I had reached a point where I had to make a decision to, either go look for another position, or do what I've always wanted to do for ever since I was a kid, was actually have my own shop, full fledged, and really make a solid go of it. So started Pro Signing Graphics, focusing on vehicle graphics and printing,
Mm-hmm.
and um, worked part-time job on the side. Started this and basically just grunted it out, just grind away for about 18 months before I could even afford to pay myself anything. Started in the basement of the house, and saved money for a while, and was able to buy a little 24-inch plotter. With all those years in the industry, I knew what I needed.
Right.
So for me, it was just a matter of learning and training. I had spent 3 years before I even got to that point, simply learning and educating myself about the business of business.
Right.
I felt that I knew plenty about signs, that I could do good, solid work. But one of the things I learned as a kid growing up with my dad was watching him really struggle with um, the business of having a sign shop. He can make wonderful signs all day long, but there was always that struggle with cash flow
Mm-hmm.
and marketing and sales, and keeping good, consistent work. Lots of ups and downs, really high highs and really low lows, which can be very disruptive and very damaging and stressful. um, you know, uh, Things that he went through with employees, and things that he went through with vendors and customers, and just kind of bring all that together and realizing, okay, if I'm smart, I'll learn from his mistakes, um, and incorporate those into how I want my shop to run, and avoid doing all those things. So I worked really hard at developing a system here, developing a vibe, developing an environment that I wanted to work in,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of set the fact that you have to make a buck aside. Obviously it's important, but going about it in a systematized way,
Right.
um, I think was very, very useful and instrumental. And actually, coincidentally, when I started Pro Signing Graphics, within a couple of years, I also started another website called thesignexpert.com.
Okay.
And I've been running that since, '08.
Really?
And that entire website is simply built to provide all kinds of free information to sign shops, small sign shops that are starting up, that have all their problems. And I've got everything from free articles and free pricing calculators and free forms and marketing forms and things like that. Just all kinds of free stuff that helps small sign shops um, avoid a lot of the problems that they can avoid. Things that no one tells them about.
Right.
So that's it's just a handy little resource, and kind of dip my toe in web development and stuff way back then.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing with people coming up in the industry, that they don't have that backer or that knowledge or previous knowledge to take with them and learn from. They're still learning as they go.
Yeah.
So you take a little bit from every little place you've worked at, and you know what to do and what not to do. And I think, planning out a system in the beginning is huge. You need to have that. You just can't, move into a shop and just think the business is going to come. You got to learn how to balance your checkbook, figure out what your everyday cost of running the business is, and not living paycheck by paycheck, because that is a huge struggle for a lot of us, I think. I know people even now that have been in the industry for 10, 12 years still doing the same thing. And I'm just like, oh,
Yep.
why? Like, get a system together. And and it's okay too, if that's not your gig or something you want to teach yourself to learn, it's okay to hire somebody to take over that position, because you can't lose sight of that either, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about finding the balance, and figuring out, number one, what do you want to be doing?
Right.
Um, There's some guys that just get a huge thrill and they derive a lot of pleasure from doing the quick turn, banners and choro signs and PVC and things like that. So, that's your fast signs route, your signs by tomorrow, your, next day signs, that kind of environment. And those are great business models.
Right.
But if you're not a guy that enjoys that kind of a quick turn environment, you shouldn't be doing that kind of work. You could be the other side where you want to do the handcrafted, absolutely beautiful, sculpted, handmade signage. Well, if that's the direction you want to go and you focus your energies on that, then the other type of signage, that becomes a distraction. That now
Right.
becomes a problem for you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're sitting there and you're working on a $3,000, cedar sign that has beautiful smalt in the background and you're gold leafing it and all that stuff, you got to be focused on that. And somebody walking in the front door saying, "Hey, I want a banner," that is not the client you need to be focused on, because they've now become a disruption.
Right.
So knowing where your market is, where your niche is super critical. And the same thing applies to, obviously, wraps. With Pro Sign and Graphics, that's what we focus on. Big and sticky is our thing.
Mm.
And we regularly refer, if someone calls here looking for a banner, I ask what side of town are they on, and I refer them to another shop. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
I would much rather they go to another shop and be able to be served quickly and efficiently by someone that I know. I'm not just going to refer them to anybody.
Right.
And now they have a good taste in their mouth that, number one, Pro Sign and Graphics was helpful, even though they weren't someone that I needed. And number two, when it comes back to wraps, that all comes right back around to me, because that's what we focus on here.
Right. The big fleet stuff.
Yeah,
That,
and not even so much. I mean, we do some fleet work, but we do a lot of big custom thing, onesie twosies, but lots of them.
lots of them. Yeah. Yeah. So that's your main gig. Now you had spoke about your guys coming back from South Carolina. Do you guys
Mm-hmm.
often travel to do a lot of your work, or do you keep a lot of the stuff in house when you can?
Not so much. I normally try to keep the guys here in town.
Yeah.
I'm real big about um, controlling the workflow and the stress levels here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fairly rare for me to have to send guys out of town. This particular project, we just simply had to do it that way.
Yeah.
But I normally prefer that they be here and we be working in our shop in controlled conditions, all the tools we need to give the proper service that we need to give.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Let's talk a little bit about your shop and, what type of equipment you're running. Talk about the people that work with you.
Yeah, we run latex and solvent. We have four HP latexes, and we still keep a Mamaki JV33 solvent here. We don't run that as much, simply because so much of what we do is wraps.
Yeah.
And the HP latex printers, all OEM inks, it's a bulletproof system, in
Right.
my opinion. We ran solvents for years. We ran Mamaki JV3s for years, and just the time that we would lose in properly outgassing, making sure everything was cured. You'd lose 2 or 3 days working that through the system, and we can outgas a lot faster with the HP. So yeah, once we shifted over to the latex system, it was pretty much a no-brainer for us. We were able to crank through a lot faster.
Do you still outgas your HP prints as well?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. Because,
Yeah.
that's a huge thing. I think a lot of people buy the HP because of the way they market it and the way everybody talks
Sure.
about it. Like, oh, you can laminate it straight from being printed. And
Right.
I still think, personally, no matter what, I still think there's still gases being trapped in there. And it could be a potential problem installing it, especially when you have, heavy colors, saturations.
Yes.
That
That's
tends
where
to
it is,
be.
the heavy color.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, your standard prints, we've never had any issue, and we've been printing latex since, oh, geez, that's been we had one of the first 25-500s here in Columbus so it's been 7-8 years now. And we've been printing on latex ever since then. We've never had an issue with any inks or outcasts or anything like that. But there's absolutely some truth to, if you're doing a lot of dark, heavy saturation, you need to let that stuff sit for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. How do you outgas your prints? Do you just roll them loose in the spool, or do you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just roll them loose if we need to. I know there was a couple. We were messing around with a couple different ways of outgassing when we were running solvents a lot, years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Having fans in there to draw that air down,
Yeah.
putting them up on a rack, and that was pretty effective. Again, we didn't really have any issues because we took the time to schedule everything properly and not rush everything through like super fast and then wonder why it failed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Chemistry is chemistry.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can't change that, unfortunately. Do you see a difference in color from the solvent to the latex as far as printing or when you're installing, stretching and what the capabilities are as far as that?
Not really, because we don't stretch. I train all my guys to feed in and out whenever possible.
Mm-hmm.
If there's any manipulation to the film that needs to be done, it's at a bare minimum. I am not a fan of heating and stretching. I think it stresses the final. If you're working with 3M Avery films, you only have about 30% stretch anyway.
Right.
And eventually you're going to get to a point where you are going to need to do some stretching. And if you've been stretching from the very beginning, you've now overextended it and you're going to fail. The wrap's going to come up. So we train everybody to approach everything cold,
Mm-hmm.
and then only apply heat to relax the films and to manipulate when it's absolutely necessary to do that. Until that point, we don't stretch, and it makes everything a lot more stable.
And do you do your own in-house training?
Yes.
Nice. And obviously you're probably the one training them from the get-go.
Yeah, I normally start everybody. We do a kind of an apprentice approach here.
Right.
Um, people people don't apply here and just get hired as a rapper.
Mm-hmm.
I work with finding people who have an interest in rapping and often have never done it before,
Wow.
but they are offered, if they ask, they're offered an opportunity to come to the shop. And I spend my time. We have training forms, we have the material, the tools, everything we need, and I will teach them, and they'll just practice and practice and practice. And if they come back, I teach them some more. And if they keep coming back, and I would say in the past 10 years, I might have made that offer to, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 people. A handful have actually taken me up on it and shown up. And almost every single one of them actually ends up being hired at some point because those are the guys that have the passion.
Right.
They're the ones that have the enthusiasm. They're the ones that after doing it are like, yeah, I'm coming back. I really like this. And my entire team right now is built of people that have gone through that type of system with me.
That's
So,
great.
so we all want to be here. We all enjoy what we do. We all really dig rapping. We all really get a kick out of, finishing up a project and stepping back and going, we did that. That is really cool. And that's kind of the vibe, the environment that I've built here.
How long's your apprenticeship kind of as far as like
No,
timing that you give them?
it depends on how much they're coming in. Some guys they'll want to come in every 2 or 3 days, and so it'll take a few weeks for me to get them to the point where I feel comfortable putting them on a paying project. Everyone's aware right up front. I'm not paying you to come in, not to learn, and you're never going to work on a customer's car. So
Mm-hmm.
while you're working through this process, I'm devoting time, materials, tools. You're devoting your time and willingness to learn. And if we come together and if that works out, then we move forward.
Wow. That's a huge incentive. I wish I had
It
someone
is.
like you around my area at the time when I was starting.
It has to be the right timing. It really does. I mean, think back 15 years ago. Think about who you were at that point.
Yeah.
I know 20 years ago myself, if I'd been offered that position, I might have just scoffed and walked away
Mm.
because I wasn't ready for that. So finding the right timing with the right people makes that work really well. The downside is it makes it very difficult for me to hire quickly.
Yeah, yeah. But you know
But we
what?
hire well.
Right. For the long run, your turnaround in employment isn't large.
We simply don't have turnover.
Yeah.
It's very rare for people to leave here, and usually, if they do leave, it's because they've had some major change. They have to leave the state, or or they've been offered some amazing opportunity, and I'll look them dead in the face and say, "You have to take this
Hmm.
and go with my blessing." It's just way too important. We spend way too much of our life working to not enjoy what we do.
I agree.
And I believe adamantly in that. And I look for people who want to be here, who enjoy what we do, who take pride in what we do. And everybody who works for me all kind of gets the same, I don't know, speech or whatever you want to call it. But since we spend too much of our life working, we have to enjoy it. And
Hmm.
if they ever get to the point where they simply do not enjoy this anymore, then they've been charged with the responsibility to come and let me know, and I will help them find another job. I've got no problem with that, and I have yet to have anyone take me up on that offer.
Wow. Wow. That's
But
incredible.
it's a serious offer. I mean, if you're just miserable, I want to help, and if I need to help you find another job, then I will help you find another job.
You really don't hear that too much from, a business owner looking at an employee like that, where, at the end of the day, their dynamic isn't just affecting them, it's affecting everybody. And you can't, once
Correct.
you have one bad apple, the rest of it only takes time before the rest of them start getting spoiled as well.
Yeah,
So,
and it's not even so much a bad apple, but it's discontent.
right,
And a lot of times it could be something that's completely personal. It has nothing to do with us per se.
right.
But if this is once you start, you're right. Once you start getting that kind of vibe, it's hard to stop it.
Hmm.
So I try to build an environment from the beginning that fosters, good, encouraging environment, and try to make it a safe. Yeah, what's the buzzword? It's a safe space.
Safe space.
Yeah, but we kind of take it seriously here. I expect guys to come and let me know, and if there's any issues, then we talk it out. I'm real big on communication.
Yeah,
Um, because it doesn't take very much for someone to get a misconception or get their feelings hurt, or without being too hippy dippy about it. It's the way we communicate and the way we interact with each other is important. And if you get to the point where someone feels like they can't come and tell you something, then there's problems.
right.
But if everyone's on the same page and everyone's really enjoying what we're doing, it's amazing what you can accomplish as a team. I mean, we put out a lot of wraps here, and there's only between Pro Sign and Graphics and Carmeleon, there's 9 of us, and we put out a lot of stuff.
That's incredible. How many cars are you guys kind of averaging per year wrapping? Do you know?
Carmeleon Skins with Bert and Ashley, and those guys we've been averaging about one and a half a week.
Wow.
And then Pro Sign and Graphics, we tend to do more big projects. So that's all commercial work.
Hmm.
But we can easily knock out, a couple vans, a 40-footer, and, do a wall graphic or something like that in a week. That's well within our wheelhouse.
That's incredible. Let's talk about your team a little bit. So you said you have about 9 people. All of them have their own individual roles in the company. Let's talk about them a little bit. Do you have an office person, an accountant, and all that within in-house, and then have your installers, and then for the commercial aspect as well as the custom graphics and color change area of your business as well?
I do not have an in-house bookkeeper and accountant. I insist on being that person.
Okay.
The reason being is, referencing back to my father, I saw him struggle a lot when I was a kid with managing the cash flow. And I have noticed different shops I've worked with over the years, different shops that I work with as far as doing consulting and helping and things like that, is when a business owner lets the knowledge of the money leave,
Mm-hmm.
you get in trouble really fast. You're not paying attention to what's coming in. You're not paying attention to what's going out. And within, especially in custom, signage, custom wraps, you can be in real trouble within a matter of months,
Mm-hmm.
not realizing what's happening with your cash flow simply because all you're seeing are sales coming in.
Right.
And you're not paying attention to all the other expenses that are going on. And unless you've got your finger on the pulse of your company, and cash flow is the pulse, if you don't have your finger on the pulse, you can get in trouble fast. So regardless of how large we grow, I tend to want to have my finger on my pulse. I want to know what's happening. So we do have an accountant, but that is an out-of-house service that we use, for a monthly and quarterly and taxes and things like that. That's our trained professional. That's our trained CPA that takes care of that position for us. But one of the things that I insisted on learning years ago was learning about accounting and how you do it and why you do it and what I should be paying attention to.
Wow.
Again, the business of wraps, not just doing a wrap.
Right. And that goes for anything, not just the wrap industry, but anything in general.
Absolutely.
So you can
Absolutely.
take that into any type of industry, and knowing that is huge. Everybody's got to know how to balance their checkbook and know their revenues and what they can spend per day. Do you spend a lot of your time as far as like what you do at the shop? Is that your main thing? What else do you like doing?
I like doing all of it. I come from an all-around sign background. However, with Pro Sign and Graphics, in order to keep us stable, I focus on marketing and sales.
Mm-hmm.
I focus on the books, and I focus on a lot of project management and things like that. The rest of the guys take care of pre-press work and file setup, making sure the files are running, the laminating, trimming. We have a number of guys that are floaters, so they'll move back and forth between Pro Sign and Graphics and Carmeleon. Some of the guys with Carmeleon only come in for short periods, like if we're doing tinting or they're helping out with disassembly and things like that. Our main guys, Omar and Bert and Curtis, and those guys, there are, everyday installers. Those are our primary crews and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And with Carmeleon, you guys do a lot of, you had mentioned window tinting as well?
Yeah, in fact, Bert and Omar and Bert's wife Ashley just finished up doing the Dub IR tint training.
Oh, really?
Last week. So 3 days intensive here at the shop, in our clean room, learning everything from the ground up on doing the ceramic tint. Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, that's a whole nother kind of aspect for the industry that kind of goes hand in hand with the wraps a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a film, but surprisingly enough, it is laid completely opposite of the way we're used to laying film.
yeah. I've seen a lot of back windows, preheating, and it's real tedious. It's
Yep.
almost equivalent to PPF, where you have to have the windows super clean. You get any type of dust particles. It's a nightmare. Thank God I didn't ever got into that.
We focus all of that on the Carmeleon Skin side. So the Carmeleon Skin side is the retail side. So that's the paint replacement. That's the window tinting, the ceramic coating, the tail light tinting. That type of environment is all Carmeleon Skins, and that's Bert. That's Bert's baby. He takes care of all that, and I simply I try to keep that my involvement restricted to support and facilitating and things like that.
And that's all within the same square footage as the Pro Signs shop, or is it?
Yeah, nope. We added onto the side of Pro Sign and added a clean room and stuff over there for that.
Oh wow! How big's your shop?
The building, it's our space. I always lose track of where we are because we grow. I think we're around 8,000, 9,000 square feet, something like that.
Wow, that's incredible. And I'm sure you've got the huge garage door, pulling buses, semis, and whatnot.
Yeah, the 9,000, 8,000, 9,000 square feet that we have is active workspace, and then we actually, the entire building, we share space with another company. The entire building's a good 250,000 square feet, something like that.
Wow.
We can pull in half a dozen 53-foot trailers at a time if we need to, no
That's
problem.
incredible. Yeah, that's got to be great for a huge fleet job where you have
Yep,
the location for them, have them all lined up, and
yep.
it's just boom, boom, boom.
We just rack them in, line them up, and get them done.
That's awesome.
It's super handy, of course, in the Midwest, because in the winter, having a heated, protected place is always super important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You guys must have the blowers out often, blowing out the water, blowing out the snow, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, we've got everything we need to make sure we actually schedule everything. Even if it's snowed and ice and things like that, we tell all of our clients that, especially in the winter,
Hmm.
they have to plan on bringing vehicles here the day before we even start. They have to bring them in clean.
Yeah.
If they don't, then take them back out and wash them. Um, and then we focus on making sure ambient temperature on those skins are all brought up to proper temperature. Everything's melted and dried out before we even start the following day. And then after we get the installation done, we also insist that that stays inside the building the following night before they can even pick it up, to make sure that we have proper bonding.
Right. Yeah, that's huge. It drives me crazy because I see these cars getting done and they're getting picked up the same day. They've been in the garage all day, past couple of days, and then as soon as they go out to the heat, especially if you're in California or whatever the case may be, um, proper post heating and all that good stuff, that's great. But when the sun's being on, that's a whole different animal. When it's
Yeah,
outside, something could curl and you never know. It's always good to have it that extra day just to double check it.
that's right. You can come in the next morning, give it another once over, make sure we don't have any popping, anything fingering, anything wonky going on there before, it even heads out. And it's been bonding, properly inside the whole time. So,
Right,
um, it's rare. I mean, I found that, um, as long as you, set your customer expectations, it's never a problem.
right,
So we tell people that process from the very beginning, so it's never a surprise. And we schedule well, we keep everything on track really well, and we it's very rare that we ever have any issues, just because we're trying to control that environment.
right. That's huge. Let's um let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about the wrapper mapper
Sure.
a little bit. So how did you come up with the idea to create the wrapper mapper?
The classic way, man. I just I was just trying to solve my own problems.
Yeah, just couldn't find someone to help, and it was just like nowhere to look. And
Right. Yeah, it was. We're members of the UASG.
yep.
So we work with the UASG shops around the country if we have something that's out there. And at that time, it was, in order for you to find anyone, you had to basically pull up Google Maps.
Hmm.
And I just remember one. It was a Friday. I wanted to get out of here. We're trying to get us, an install scheduled on the other side of the country. And I'm looking at my computer screens, and I have, right now I'm looking at one, two, three, four, five. I've got 7 computer screens up in front of me, and
Jeez.
I had, I don't know how many tabs open in Google Maps, trying to match this shop to this location, and then where is that in relation to the actual job site. And it just popped in my head, there's got to be a better way to do this, because it was taking forever. So I spent the weekend and, kind of started coding up the preliminary site, and got everything all mapped out and put it up, and sent a couple links out to a couple groups I was in, like on LinkedIn, and just said, hey, I kind of built this. What do you guys think of it? Do you like this idea? And it just exploded from there. Nothing but overwhelming, support of, wow, this is a great solution.
Hmm.
And just started growing from there. And, went through a couple iterations. We try to always improve it, make it better. We're constantly growing. We're over 1,300. Geez, I haven't even checked in a while. I think we're over 1,300 shops now in 44, 45 countries at this point.
Wow.
Um, and then, you can separate everyone out by their certifications or the network. If they've gone through Justin's class, and they're Avery, CWI certified, then, they're listed that way on the map. If they're members of the mob or they're members of PID, then, they have that network filtered out for them on the map.
Mm-hmm.
So you can very quickly go through people in an area or people even across the world that are, if you prefer to work with one group or one certification over another, it's easy to, filter them out and look at them that way.
Right.
And then from there, with my involvement in the industry itself, I found myself getting more and more into doing photography, and starting to photograph the competitions and the parties, and I just love the industry so much. I just thoroughly enjoy being involved in the industry that anytime I saw an opportunity to do something more, I would just do more.
Yeah. Keep yourself busy.
That's just my personality, I guess.
That's awesome. So going in, did you have any type of prior photography ambitions to be a photographer or even get into that?
No, not really. I just started shooting about 4 years ago.
Really? And it just
Yeah.
just kind of snowballed, like anything.
Well, I mean, yeah, it was one of those things where I had a guy working here at the time who did local techno shows, so
Mm-hmm.
underground techno and that type of stuff. And he had a show coming up over the weekend, and we were talking about it. He was bummed out. He was, a little upset because the guy that was supposed to show up the next day and get photos canceled on him last minute. I was like, well, I've got a halfway decent camera. I can come out and help you out if you want. Just volunteer to help him out. So I went out and I spent the day before online, just kind of going through and figuring out, okay, what settings should I be using and what kind of things should I watch out for? Because it's going to be super dark and there's going to be lights and fog and people are dancing. I'm thinking like the worst possible conditions that you could be shooting.
Just everybody's blurry.
That's right. I mean, it was, and I showed up, and sure enough, it was horrible conditions. But I got some good shots, and I sent them over to him, and he just looked at them and just said, "Holy crap!" He said, I've never seen shots this good before. No one's been ever been able to capture what we do. How did you do this?" And I said, "Well, I'm not entirely sure yet. I'm still learning."
Magic.
but and then he invited me, "Hey, can you come out to the next show?" And it just snowballed from there. I think I don't think I look at it any differently than anyone else in our industry, and you probably would agree with this, that most of us are craftsmen, we're artists, we're creatives, and we're never happy to just do what we do. We always want to get better. We always want to keep learning and doing cooler things. So when I started doing the photography, I caught the bug. I really did. And I just constantly want to get better and shoot better and find better angles and just always want to keep improving. And then when Rapper Mapper started taking off and started doing more shows, it was natural for me to start incorporating that into the process. And then incorporating all of that into the social media and the live coverage and trying to put out to the world what rapping is about. That these competitions are amazing and that these installers are highly skilled, and there's all these industry things going on and these competitions and these parties, and just putting it out there. And I feel like Rapper Mapper as an overall entity kind of helps bring the industry together globally.
Yeah.
Because I don't draw any distinctions between films or who you trained with or what network you're involved with or what tools you use, or none of that matters to me. If we're rappers, we're rappers. And I'm a big proponent of rap family, rap brotherhood. We all do this because we like to do it. And I don't get too caught up in the particulars or when, where, or how you got into it. If you're doing it, awesome. Let's all get better.
Definitely. And that's great that you intertwined the photography in with the Rapper Mapper brand, because you travel to tremendous places. You just got back from Brazil, right? Recently?
Yeah, Yeah, Altac is the largest wrap film manufacturer in Brazil.
Right.
They have a couple of factories in Sao Paulo. They put on an amazing, an absolutely amazing show, demonstrations, with Joffrey and Lewis and Thiago, and then Justin Pate and Gemas were doing full wrap demos, and they had a competition going on and speed wraps on hoods and just all kind. It was really well done, and it's an amazing place.
Yeah, it looked by the photos that you had taken and the footage you had just released for the videography of a couple highlights of the show. It looked amazing, absolutely
Yeah.
amazing. And you were actually one of the judges as well.
Yeah, I was one of the judges with Eduardo and Mariah.
Mm.
So we were judges. That was kind of difficult to juggle, but
Yeah, right.
yeah, because you would shoot in between the rounds, and I would shoot while things were going on. But then you'd have to put the camera down, and you'd have to make sure we go through our sheets and do all that fun stuff. But you know what? It was absolutely enjoyable, and just meeting the rappers from Brazil, so passionate, so enthusiastic, and skilled. It was a good time.
Definitely, it definitely looked like a good time. And two, I mean, you also you have a blog as well, and you talk about current events that are happening as they're happening.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me a little bit about that, because I just don't understand how you get any sleep between doing photography, writing these blogs, which are pretty intense. I mean, you really have to be a really great writer to write certain things, and to, I don't know how long it would take you to kind of write a blog, but I know if I had to sit there and write about some type of event, I'd never be satisfied with it.
Yep.
And you push them
Yep.
out as it's happening. You're doing that
Um,
stuff that night, you know?
well, normally the photography and everything happens at night. I try to shoot during the day and then get that stuff out right away so people can see what happened during the day.
Yeah.
Um, as far as the blog articles, that depends. Sometimes I'm able to just write it quickly, but for me, quickly is a couple of hours.
Hmm.
But I've been writing since I was a kid. I mean, one of my when I went to the short period of time that I was in college, that didn't stick too well. But one of those was advanced writing and creative writing. So, I mean, I
Okay.
enjoy writing as well.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, I've been doing that for a long time. It's just, again, it's just a creative thing, so I enjoy it.
Yeah, something else, just another feather in the hat.
I guess.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's something that I didn't even know that that you had taken a class in college for that.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I'm a fan of the concept of the Renaissance man. You know what I mean.
Definitely.
Not an expert or a master in anything, but pretty decent in a lot of things. I think life's more interesting that way.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Um, so what type of big plans do you have for the Rapper Mapper coming up this year?
Well, we have some really cool events coming up. We have FESPA in Berlin here in a few weeks.
Hmm.
So that's the World Rap Masters Championship. And that is where the FESPA show is the one who backs all that. Hexus is a big sponsor of that. Ollie Solskin is he's been the head judge of that for years, and that this year it's actually being transferred over to a new team. So you probably know Jeremy Connor
Hmm.
and Kiss Laos. They're going to be primary judges, and I'm not sure who the third one is. I believe she's a German rapper, but I have not met her yet. I'll meet her in a few weeks. But what they do for the World Rap Masters is they bring the winners from Europe and Mexico and Brazil and Asia and Russia and Africa. So they bring all these guys together and gals, and they compete for the World Master.
Wow.
Um, Jim Miller from Miller Decals down in Atlanta, he was the World Rap Master a couple of years ago. So it's a big deal. These guys are coming in after already winning their part of the world, and they're coming into the world championships to compete again for the world title.
That's got to be intense.
Yeah, it's a really good time. I really encourage anyone who if they ever want to travel, that's a great way to get some traveling and do something rap related is to go to one of the FESPA events. Um, so we have that coming up, and then of course we have RapsCon coming up in Long Beach.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be beginning of August. That's with Rugs and the NBM shows, and the RapsCon event, Raps VIP, which is the industry party that Dan Nava and I have been doing for, this is our third year now.
Mm-hmm.
Doing that, and then of course SEMA, that's coming up in November. That's always huge. If you can't make it to any show and you can get to SEMA, I highly recommend SEMA as well.
Definitely.
Super great show. So those are the big things really coming up for this year. And we're just plugging away right now with Rapper Mapper. We're continuing to grow, doing more and more on social media, and just trying to get the word out. The main people we try to communicate to are the customers.
Right.
Because Rapper Mapper, by its core mission, is to connect, the guy in your town who's looking to get a cool rap and just happen to see some cool project, let's say on Instagram, and we want him to go to Rapper Mapper and find you because you're there on the map. I mean, that's what we do. We try to make it easy.
Right. Good source, a good network of people in one location where anybody can kind of flip through and see in their location who's next to them that they could use or recordable for a particular install or whatnot. What's the process as far as getting on the map?
So anybody, any legitimate shop can apply to be on the map.
Mm-hmm.
They have to go to rappermapper.com, and there's a tab where you can sign up for a free spot or a premium spot. Anyone can sign up, but we go through an entire vetting process. We're checking the address. We're looking at the website. If you claim any certifications, we are checking those certifications. We don't take anyone at their word. And we insist that you have an actual physical location and you have a viable website. If all you have is Instagram and Facebook and things like that, then you don't qualify and we won't list you on the map. It's one of the ways that we set a bar
Mm-hmm.
to keep that resource as useful as possible for the industry and for people to find shops. It's just too easy anymore for someone to say, "Oh yeah, I'm a rapper," and all they have is an Instagram page.
Yeah.
In my opinion, maybe they're good, but the chances are likely that they're really not that good, and they haven't taken the time to set up a viable, legitimate business. So that's one of the ways that we keep, like I said, we keep that as a valuable resource and as a reliable one.
Right. And you don't have to be certified in order to be
No,
on the map. Okay.
no, absolutely not. We have a designation that we call just an independent installer.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of guys out there and gals that are excellent installers that have never gone through certification.
Right.
So we don't we don't have any problem with that at all. As long as they have a physical location, they have a good viable website that showcases plenty of their rap projects. Then they're eligible for us to look at them and get them on the map.
Definitely. How many applicants are you getting? Let's just say just like per month average.
That's a good question. I can go back through here and take a look. So just so far this month, in the last 10 days, we've got 10, 15 applicants.
Wow.
So it's not uncommon to have 20, 30, 40 applicants in a month. Our industry isn't gigantic. So it's not like I've got millions of people clamoring to get in. So yeah, good steady growth, and everyone gets vetted, even if they don't qualify. They are sent an email back just letting them know that you don't qualify and here's why.
Right. And that's good. I like the Rapper Mapper because also too you can kind of see how the industry's growing and kind of get a general number of the growth of who's around.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the industry is definitely growing. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And um, depending on which way you look, I mean, the paint replacement side is certainly growing, and commercial side, with especially with so many businesses benefiting from the improved economy and things like that, most definitely growing.
Oh, I agree for sure. You also talked a little bit about your involvement with the RapsCon and Raps VIP with Dan Nava. You're also a trainer on the IBOW as well, correct?
Yeah, I work with Dan to well in multiple things. And anything he needs me to help out with, I tend to help out with.
Yeah.
I mean, Dan is a hard worker. Him and Chrissy both just have devoted a lot of time and a lot of energy to building the IBOW system and the training, and how they're helping out the industry and the various tool manufacturers and networks and things like that. So I met Dan. Dan's from Indianapolis, so he's only a couple hours away from me.
Yeah.
And he contacted me, well, 3 years ago, with his idea to throw a party. And we both came from similar backgrounds, similar knowledge in techno and underground electronic music and things like that. So we hit it off. And his he has the same view of the industry, that it doesn't need to be segmented. Everyone can help everybody. We can all work together and do amazing things as an industry.
Yeah.
And so I get that, and I appreciate that. So it's always fun to work with him.
Yeah, when you've got the same values and kind of have the same general upbringing in the industry and background, it's easier to get along and kind of, it helps. It goes back to
Yeah.
that vibe. It's like when
No,
you talk
absolutely.
when you talk to somebody, you can kind of tell within the first couple sentences whether, this person's gonna be, not a good person or kind of like a salesperson type of
Right.
stance. You know what I mean? I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we always get those guys that come in and they'll talk your ear off. You're just like, I'm not going to get anything done today.
That happens. That doesn't happen so much here at our shop. I actually, we keep our shop off the beaten path for a reason. Unless Pro Signing Graphics is here or Carmeleon Skins is here, and you have a reason to be here, then you don't just stumble on us by accident. But what that does is it lets us focus on doing our job and doing it really well, and servicing our customers well. Our marketing is dependent on a lot of word of mouth, a lot of referral. We have excellent reputation, and social media, and being involved with local clubs and things like that. So I did the fast signs for years. I worked in a fast signs and quick turn shops for a number of years when I was younger.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from it. A lot about systems and a lot about how to run shops well and efficiently. I never liked the high turnover,
Yeah.
just that pace that you have to run to make that viable. And when I started my own shop, I was like, yeah, we're not doing that.
Yeah. Everyone's going to have their own lane and
Yeah.
everybody's going to do their own thing and nobody's going to cross lanes. I mean, I've walked into some speed pros or some fast signs, and like literally it looks like everybody's running around with their head cut off.
Yeah.
All day.
And I guarantee you that they all know exactly what they're doing. And they're all being, depending on the owner, they're all efficient. They're getting the job done. But it's just that there's this vibe, there's this very intense, you're never fast enough. There's constant fires.
Yeah. Yeah.
I went through that phase years ago, and it is too much stress.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's too much stress.
Yeah, you
I
don't,
didn't want
you
my
don't
shop
need
to run
that.
like that.
Yeah, you don't need it, especially as you get older. those types of things get, you fall that shit to the wayside. You don't need it,
Yeah. I mean, I can always make more money. We can always get another job. We can always sell another wrap, right? We can
Right.
never get the time back.
Right.
So I'd much rather have control over my time and then be able to pick and choose what I'm working on or what business I'm growing or what activity I'm involved in or if I'm going to do something with the family or I want that choice rather than I can't go anywhere. I'm stuck here at the shop until 10 o'clock every single night because the jobs never stop coming in.
Right.
I've done that. I don't want to do that. So my business is designed to not do that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think that's the entrepreneur in us in the beginning stages where we kind of want to, we're building this baby, so to say, and we want to give it so much attention and we want to see it grow and strive. And you get to a point where, okay, everyone always tells you, and I hear this kind of roundabout number, you don't make a dime till you're 5-6 years into it. You basically struggle for 5-6 years and you've got to put in that time. And I agree a little bit, but it really depends in where you're at, in your life that you can put that time in. When I was 20 and running around with my head cut off and just working, 20 hours a day, sure. Did I lose out time, when my kids were growing up at that time? Yeah. Did I think about that then? No. Do I think about it now? Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. I'll never get that time. I think my daughter turned 5 and I was like, where the hell did 5 years go? I don't remember anything. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And vacations were like, I don't even know what that V word was. You know what I mean?
Right.
And even if I was on vacation, all I was thinking about was all the nightmares and fires I had to put out when I came back.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's tough. And like I said, depends on where you're at in your life. If I was to do it all over again today, I'd be where you're at, where time is worth way more to me than anything else. Tomorrow, that job can finish, but we're all leaving at 5 today. Everybody shut it down. Let's go. That job can wait till tomorrow. You know what I mean? And I see all these people now coming into the industry and I can totally relate to what they're doing now, working, 15, 20-hour days. And you gotta feed the monster in order for it to grow. You gotta make that money. But I think if someone had sat down with me at the time and said, listen, I know what's going to happen the next 5-10 years. Slow down and don't let time pass. You're going to regret it. You know what I mean? And for sure I did. That's it. You'll never get that back. And it's heartaching for a lot of people. It ruins, a lot of people don't talk about it, but it ruins lives. It ruins marriages, it ruins relationships, friendships, whatever the case may be. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so definitely depends.
Yeah. Depends on the scenario.
I mean, if you're young, you don't have a wife, you don't have kids, then you've got the time to just grind it.
Yeah.
And if you have the motivation at that point in your life to do that hard work, you are going to be leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else.
I agree.
Right? Because that's where you can sacrifice, that time to then jumpstart the business.
Yep.
As soon as you have a wife and children in the matrix, once they're involved in that whole formula, your priorities have to start shifting. Because that has much higher price than what you think.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And especially now in this kind of generation where, I know you're a little bit older than me, but, you sitting back and remembering when you were 5-6 years old in your dad's basement, watching him sign paint, growing up in a shop, a lot of, 3rd, 4th, 5th generations of sign makers just remember being in the shop all the time. That takes up a lot of your life and a lot of your time. And it's nice when you can have your child grow up with that type of background and be with you and be involved. But now it's so much harder with, you don't have daycare, we don't have help. It's not like it used to be back then,
Yeah. It's a whole different environment now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back then, you could bring your younger kid in, and they can help out with certain things.
Right.
Um, but and there was lots of kind of learning jobs that you could do,
Mm-hmm.
whereas those kind of jobs they don't exist anymore. You have to
Right.
have a certain level of skill, and you know, turning your 5-year-old loose with an X-Acto knife and a squeegee, that ain't gonna happen.
Right. Right. Yeah.
you know. So, but even with that, there's still, we've started seeing the next generation coming up, of installers that have been, they're 18, 19, 20 years old, and they've already been installing for 6, 7 years.
That's incredible.
And we're going to start seeing more and more of that. I mean, because just as human beings, we just get a kick out of, we have a kid that just digs what we do,
Mm-hmm.
that totally loves what we do, and Dad, I want to rap. Like, yes,
Perfect.
come on in, let me teach you. So I definitely think we're going to see that. We're going to see that more and more, and we're going to see the industry get pushed even higher and even harder with some of the stuff. The younger generation is going to come in. They're going to know how to do stuff. By the time they're 18, that we've spent 15 years learning,
Right.
and they're going to be just moving harder and faster and higher.
I agree. I agree. And I know I've only talked about this a few times, and I think we brought it up during Dan's episode as well, as far as trying to incorporate this industry into schools, the trade
Yep.
schools. This is a
Yep.
trade. And I feel like, back then there were only, I don't know exactly, so don't take my word for it, maybe less than a handful of sign painting schools left.
I'm not even sure if there's any left anymore.
There's not. The last one just closed in Boston. I want to say, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. Butera School of Art. Right in downtown, the heart of Boston. And funny story, I drove by that school every day when I was going to college in Boston. Didn't even know it was there, and I was going to school for visual communications.
Yep.
And never noticed it was there. When I ended up getting my internship at a sign shop, I saw, School of Butera, her kind of certificate of completion there, and her photo at graduation. I'm like, oh, what's that? She's like, oh, a school in Boston. And I'm like, oh my God, that's like 3 blocks away from where I went. And she's like, yeah, I sign painted. They taught you how to airbrush. They taught you how to mask. She met her husband there, and famous airbrush artist came out of there as well. I know his name's gonna escape me now, from California. He created the True Flame, Mike LaValle.
Oh, okay. Mike LaValle, yeah.
He came out of that school back then. I don't know when it was, maybe early 80s, possibly. But a lot of great people came out of that school, and unfortunately it got bought out, and they never did anything else with it, unfortunately. But I have to pay homage to that trade and that skill, because without that we wouldn't have what we have. And to see this new generation in digital printing and wrap design to be incorporated in schools, I just can't wait till that actually happens.
Right.
It's definitely going to be a game changer, and I think we'll see a lot of great new upcoming people, like you said, already being in the industry for 4, 5, 6 years, and being 18, take the industry and strive with it.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, definitely. Tim, awesome. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. This has been an absolute pleasure. Is there anything else that you may want to talk about that I may have overlooked?
No, I think we've pretty much we've covered everything that I deal with.
Perfect. Yeah, I love when I have just conversations and it's just free reign, no script. We just kind of let the ball go and see what happens and where the conversation takes us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Obviously, at the end of the show, I like to let everybody know where they can find you, information, social media accounts, just to help promote your brand and what you're doing for the industry.
Rapper Mapper is at Rapper Mapper at pretty much every social media platform. Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, all that stuff. Rappermapper.com is the website, and industry news and photography, and of course the primary point of the site is the map itself. Easily finding installers and connecting everybody that way.
Definitely. I love that. Tim, absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to sit down and talk to me for a little bit and share your story.
Pleasure, Jeff.
Thank you to everyone for tuning into the podcast, and thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to the 3rd annual Raps VIP event in Long Beach, California on August 3rd. Make sure to head over to their website at www.rapsvipevent.com for more information. And thank you to all our listeners. If you liked our content, share it. Give us a rate and review. Till next time, folks, that's a wrap.